Study Session 8, Critical Theory, Introduction. In the previous study session, we examined the theory of structuralism, which we described as an offshoot of Marxism. In this study session, we will discuss critical theory, which also has its intellectual roots in Marxism. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this study session, you should be able to discuss at least 4 assumptions of the critical theory. Contributions of critical theory. Critical theory became influential in international relations since the mid-1980s. One thing you should note is that the critical theory is not so called because critical theorists criticize other perspectives. This is not the case. Critical theory is basically concerned about how theory could be used in human emancipation, that is, the liberation of the oppressed people of the world. Critical theory, which was officially coined in 1937, refers first and foremost to the works of the Frankfurt Institute of Social Research, or the Frankfurt School, established in Frankfurt, Germany in 1923. The school critically analyzed the relationship between fascism and the authoritarian personality and the impact of science and technology on critical reason. The most important early thinkers of the school included Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, and Herbert Marcuse. Critical theory places emphasis on the concept of hegemony. The critical theorist's interpretation of hegemony is different from that of the realists, though, unlike the realists who view hegemony as the predominant power of the state or a group of states, they look at hegemony in terms of class relations. A class is considered hegemonic if it has legitimized its dominance through institutions and concessions. When a class has established dominance in this way, as well as in the formal political structure of a state, then it constitutes a historical bloc. Critical theory is basically concerned about how theory could be used in human emancipation, that is, the liberation of the oppressed people of the world. Hegemony is also used in critical theory to describe the dominance of certain major states in the world. One prominent critical theorist who has applied this to the study of international relations is Robert Cox. He used it to explain international economic relations. In his book, Production, Power and World Order, Social Forces in the Making of History, 1987, Cox puts forward a comprehensive theory of the evolution of international hegemonic orders in the modern era. Cox attributes a greater role to states, and hegemonic states in particular, than traditional Marxists had done in the past. Hegemonic states working in alliance with capitalist forces create a global framework within which capitalism can expand globally and establish itself as the dominant mode of production. The original element in Cox's work, which is inspired by the thought of Antonio Gramsci, is the key role played by ideological factors. Cox argues that to stabilize the hegemonic order and make it legitimate, it needs to be based on a set of consensual ideas that are widely accepted by other states and civil society at large. The hegemonic bloc that underpins the international order thus rests not only on a coalition of political and economic forces, but also includes key elements of civil society. It is this extended notion of hegemony that explains the resilience of the capitalist order against all Marxist predictions of its imminent collapse. Unlike Marxism, however, the theory does not hold a rigid view of the relationship between the economic and social system. Critical theory views society and the state as having a degree of autonomy, reflecting the complex pattern of forces at work in the society. It believes that although capitalism is an exploitative and oppressive system, it does generate certain opportunities for social change that oppositional groups can use to their advantage. For example, change can be achieved through the democratic process. Also, unlike Marxism, which concentrated on social class as a major indicator of social inequality, the critical theorists argue that there are other different kinds of social inequality and exclusion, which include nationality, ethnic origin, race, and gender. Critical theorists emphasize the importance of culture and ideology in perpetuating certain types of social relationships. They believe that culture and ideology are important and powerful forces working to support or challenge the existing economic and social order. Critical theory also argues that knowledge is power. This means that understanding the ways one is oppressed enables one to take action to change oppressive forces. Basic assumptions of critical theory. The assumptions of critical theory can be summarized as follows. 1. Critical theory argues that the world should be understood primarily in terms of the major economic and social forces generated by capitalism, which are now international in scope. 2. States and institutions should be understood primarily in terms of the functions they perform in supporting global capitalism. 3. Culture and ideology are important forces in either supporting or challenging the international social order. The concept of hegemony expresses the idea that dominant groups establish and legitimize their rule through the realm of culture and idea. Therefore, hegemony is the outcome of class struggle and serves to legitimate capitalist rule. 4. International relations constitute a struggle between varieties of social groups or social forces. Some are interested in supporting the status quo, while others are struggling to change it. 5. Through political action, human beings can challenge existing structures and thus realize more emancipatory forms of human existence. Unlike Marxism, however, the theory does not hold a rigid view of the relationship between the economic and social system. Critical theory views society and the state as having a degree of autonomy, reflecting the complex pattern of forces at work in the society. It believes that although capitalism is an exploitative and oppressive system, it does generate certain opportunities for social change that oppositional groups can use to their advantage. Assess critical theories' departure from that of realists in their interpretation of hegemony. Post your response to your tutor on Study Session 8 assignment page on course website. Study session summary. In this study session, we discuss the critical theory. The theory has its roots in Marxism theory. It emphasizes culture and ideology as important forces in either supporting or challenging the international social order. Critical theory also argues that human beings can challenge existing structures and thus realize more emancipatory forms of human existence. In addition, critical theories argue that the world should be understood primarily in terms of the major economic and social forces generated by capitalism, which are now international in scope. Lastly, critical theory has made a major contribution to the understanding of world order and institutions.